to go for it?
Take it away.
Great. Okay. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Turn the mics off.
Okay, there we go. I'll talk quietly. I'm going to sit from here, so apologies that I'm not looking at you, crowd, but I'm going to sit here. So for those who didn't see, I printed out my presentation. It's on the back table. I'm not reinventing the wheel, so a lot of this information will look similar. I am not totally sure on how you as a board want to run this in terms of crowd comments, in terms of conversation. So I'll go through a little bit of what I had to start and then take direction from you in terms of if you want to take questions from the crowd.
We'll present the facts first. And then
Yeah, okay, great. Sounds good. Okay, so we're back to pre-K planning for next year. The plan for tonight is we'll review the current status, so updated numbers from what we've had over the past couple weeks. I've got an updated slate of proposals, kind of put together by me, myself, or Mary, myself, and Jeff. Me, myself, and I. We'll do a budget scenario discussion, so I've actually got an Excel sheet where we can kind of play with some numbers and go through some different scenarios. And then the kind of impact of Bright Beginnings, which is what we heard from Nicole Gate in our last board meeting. Because I do think that that presence in the classroom and in the community impacts a little, in the school and in the community, impacts a little bit of how we approach our decision making. So a goal for tonight is not to have any formal decisions, but I do think, like, we're not voting on anything tonight, but I would like clarity in terms of what you want me to bring to the next meeting. As in, like, I can write up a formal proposal and then you can vote on it if we feel like there's enough consensus coming out of this, or if we need more time, if we need more planning, then we make a plan at that point. But we do need to, at some point this spring, have a decision made so that I can inform families who have signed up and all of that stuff. So, okay, current status. We have 16 4-year-olds currently applied. I have one more possible that I've had conversations with, 3 possible 5-year-olds. Again, our max capacity in that classroom is 20 students. I also have 5 3-year-olds who have currently expressed interest in programming in some form. We are operating on a $145,000 budget for this program next year. Again, that is conservative. I actually think we'll hit a lower number than that, but just to make sure that we're not cutting our legs out from underneath us, we're going to use that as a baseline. So, some updated proposals. You'll recognize that all families, one of the proposals is all families pay $60 a month, and that's regardless of VPK status. We can do that based on wraparound or extended care. I did check in with the county. I am like 85% sure that CCAP, if a family qualifies, CCAP could, this is Child Care Assistance Program, could cover that $60 a month if that family qualifies. We do have to get registered as a site, but I talked to Sherry Staybacken, and I think that's a relatively straightforward process. So we could pursue that, so that's an option for families. If they're not VPK eligible, then we'd use a sliding scale. So that'll be part of this conversation, is where do we want to land on a sliding scale fee structure. And then the other one was schedule changes, and this is the most significant change from last time. So, and this is where the addition of Bright Beginnings would impact this a little bit. So, the addition of another program in the building, I think gently right now is a good deal. It takes pressure off of our program to house all of the pre-K students who are interested in programming. I also think we as a board have to be conscious about wanting to make our program, and this is a little, I'm not trying to put us in competition, but I think this is something the board has to consider. We want to make sure our program is attractive to people. So if we don't have pressure on numbers, we could stay at a 4-day-a-week program, right? Which Jeff, I thought, rightly pointed out, there's value in that educationally so that kids are getting, one, more class time, but two, you're not doing this reassessment if they've been off for 4 days. You're not trying to get everybody back into a schedule and a rhythm. So having Nicole Gates' program, Bright Beginnings, in the class, in this building would allow our program to stay at 4 days. And I might even, we have talked about this, suggest that we go to 5 days a week. I think this makes sense because if we're going to have families pay, and potentially pay a chunk of money, that we should try and alleviate any additional cost about having to cover a Friday daycare, right? We have the staffing resources. Part of what is making that possible, so currently the teaching staff uses Fridays as a prep day, but Mary and I have talked about adding gym class to this pre-K regimen, so they would get that daily for 25 minutes with the gym teacher for next year. They would get library once a week. They would get a Native American lesson from Muriel Crandall in the library once a month, which is another piece of, the other elementary students get that as well. The music piece we have said occasionally. The music teacher's schedule is a real puzzle based on band and choir and junior high and high school. They cross boundaries. So we want to make that happen. We're not totally sure how that's going to happen. But all of those things provide additional prep time for Nicole Fiala and her para. And like I said, this prevents the need to find daycare on Fridays. The other piece is we track attendance, like we know who's in the building and not on any given day, but there is no consequence if a kid, like if a family said 4 days a week or 5 days a week is too much for my child, we don't care. Right, it's not like at 15 days we have to do any reporting in terms of attendance. Does that make sense? We have, yeah, go for it.
Is there a cutoff for the number of days if a parent said, I want my child to only go 3 days, that you would, at what point would you reject an application?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. It's a good question though. We would maybe set an expectation, and we could do that. Nicole Fiala has a handbook, student and family handbook, so we could consider that as a recommendation or an expectation, you know. Like I said, be a little nervous about really holding them to that, because if they're paying the bill, right, there's a part of me that, but if they're taking a VPK spot, then you have different structures for a VPK spot.
And the follow-up question with that I would have is, so if they're, like you say, they're paying the bill, if they're choosing to go less days per week, or is their bill less than?
I would probably say no.
We're at $60 a month, I would think. That would be pretty solid.
Well, that's the baseline for everybody, and then this would be additional for sliding fee scale if they didn't qualify for VPK.
But I think it's something that we should at least have within whatever the decision is.
Yep.
That's not prorated, or
Right.
it is, or whatever we
Right.
decide. All right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, those are great questions. I mean, those are good logistical, kind of press the edges of all of this. So I think what I'll do now is maybe pause my presentation and see where you guys want to go next.
Well, I think it's going to come down to obviously dollars.
Dollars, so do you want to go there? Do
Yeah.
you want to do some of the budget stuff?
Yep.
Okay. So this is just a overview without any family fees. This is what our budget looks like. A couple updates on the VPK numbers. We will not find out how many VPK slots we get until late May. And that is a legislative bound decision. So historically, and for many years, we've gotten 15 spots. I would be very surprised if we got less than that, but I don't know. We have 20 this year, which were an additional, we requested additional. So I feel pretty confident we're going to get 15 again, but I don't know that for sure until late May. So this is a projection, is my point.
And maybe you said it, the state aid VPK, the 100,000 versus the 50,000, what's?
That's like I was thinking, okay, if we only have 10 students who qualify under those new restrictions for voluntary pre-kindergarten, we would get 50,000. It's about $5,000 a student for VPK funding for the year.
And then for qualified, and that qualification is essentially free and reduced lunch?
Yeah, essentially.
Poverty.
So this is, I have a historical slides is the stuff from my last presentation that I wasn't, so if you go to the end of it, this changes to VPK eligibility slide. Those are the qualifications.
What is the, it's not free or reduced lunches anymore, it's, what is it?
Educational benefits application.
I think we should start using that term.
Yeah, and this is actually from legislative lingo.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I'm copying this out of the state.
yeah.
But yes. Now, there's also rumor, I don't know if you've heard this, but that they're actually talking about doing away with that application and going just to direct certification. So if you're getting services from social services in the county anywhere or state aid, that there are lists created based on those rosters and that you get directly certified for. I don't know that for sure though. I don't know if you.
Well, they've been throwing out some projections and we're looking at about $70,000 less compensatory. We're looking at about $70,000. This is just ballpark. Less for compensatory based on direct certification. So we're not capturing as many families as we used to. That's part of the issue. So, and with the VBK, the legislature will set a dollar amount, hopefully by May. Could be longer than that, and that's how they decide how many seats. And they know how many seats have been allocated in the past, and they know how many districts have put in for it and what we're asking for seats. And they just divide the total dollars by the number of seats, and that's how we come up with, you get this many seats, this district gets that many seats. So we're kind of throwing darts at the wall and trying to guess where we're going to land. I would say we're fairly safe. I would hope that we could probably anticipate at least 15 seats. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine we'd probably have at least 15 families that would qualify. But there is some risk that we might not have that too.
So the next couple slides are this potential fee schedules. These are a range, a spectrum of if we're charging a high end $175 a week to a low end $50 a week. And then you have the daycare comparisons down there in the lower right. What I'm going to do is pull up.
Just for
Yeah,
clarification, so I understand, I'm sure other folks understand. This is for folks who do not qualify.
Correct.
And those who do qualify, they still have to pay $60 a month as a minimum.
That's a proposal.
The proposal you're suggesting.
Yeah. So you'll notice in each of these boxes, there's a percent of median income. So that's 67% or lower. That's for 60% of the median household income, which changes based on how many people you have in your household. You would have no charge because that qualifies for the $5,000 voluntary pre-kindergarten money. 68 to 75% median income, you would pay this amount. 76 to 100%, you would pay this amount. 100 to 125, you pay this. 126% or higher, you pay this. these are not taken from anywhere. These are out of my brain. And by my brain, I said, okay, if we need to hit X budget amount, then what do we need to make or take in revenue? I also looked at it based on daycare, right? I think that is, I don't think we're looking to price gouge anybody, right? But we can play with these numbers such that you can figure out how you want to do it. So I'm going to ask you keep this piece of paper in front of you, and what we're going to do, go to this exercise with me. This is where you're going to have to turn around, and I apologize for that. But this is a live document.
When you said that, you know, these numbers came from your head, but you're basing that on the expense of $145,000.
Yes.
So there is a
Right.
root.
Yeah.
It's grounded somewhere.
Not totally arbitrary.
Okay.
Right, and this is where when you say it's grounded, yes, because, okay, these are my scenarios. Okay, and I took 10 students, let's say on average we have 10 students who qualify for voluntary pre-kindergarten, right? And then we have 10 students who do not. So this is what happens when you run these numbers at 10 students at $700 a month, right? Here, we do that. I'm doing the standard fee. 10 of those students are paying $60 a month. The other 10 are paying 60 plus. This 700 would be 60 plus 640, right? So that 60 is captured in there. This is a standard 5,400 across the board. If everybody pays $60, it's about $10,000, $11,000 between there. So, you know, paid $700 a month with 10 students, we're in the black by about $8,000. We have $200 a month, which is your $50 a week category. You're in the hole, $37,000. Now, the challenge with this is, let's say you fill all 15 VPK spots. So this money goes up to about $75,000, which means then you don't need to make as much here. So that's where I'm hoping this works. It's the exercise I was trying to do. So let's say we're all looking at this column here. Let's say we change this to 75,000 because you have 15 kids, right? 15 kids, and then the 200 a month for now 5 students. I have to do that math, but right, it changes. Part of this challenge is that there's so many variables here, and you could set a number right now, and depending on how the legislative stuff goes, we could turn around and be $20,000 in the hole because the legislative stuff didn't come through. So at this point, I think I would look for some direction about how do you want to throw a dart in the dark, or
What's the budget based off of, the $145,000?
teacher salaries? So this is my budget. This is small, I apologize. This is my budget tracking document. So expenses are $85,000 in salaries. And this is Sheena, this is how she splits out based on community ed versus money she gets from the state for the 01 fund. This year we're going to be lower than $66,000 in supplies, so we're going to come under budget.
How much?
6,600.
That's what we budgeted. I don't know where that is exactly. I think it's like,
You said 66,000, so just.
sorry, no, 6,600. That's what we budgeted. I think we're at like 3,000 right now, and I don't foresee any major expenses additionally. So that's the 145. So this year, we're spending 138. I picked 145 to be conservative in terms of salary increases and supply potential increases.
And that's basically a teacher and a
Para, yep.
Okay, so those are obviously the biggest costs, and they're kind of known costs.
Yep.
So we have our minimum baseline right there. So I think that's a pretty good
Yeah.
estimation.
Yep. And like I said, conservative, right? I just in case you need to buy some furniture or, I'm just trying to be a little careful on that. So
all these numbers are under the assumption that we'll have 20 students.
yes.
With half being funded by VPK.
Yeah.
And you said how many applications have you received?
I have 16 right now. 16 applications. Some of those are in the wind, who have called me and said that they're interested, but we need to find out a little bit more. If we go to this slide, no, this one. Those 3 5-year-olds I think would be interested potentially, and that I haven't promised them anything because traditionally, if in order to be VPK qualified, you have to be 4 at September 1st. So I've always been a little careful with 5-year-olds to say, I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
And do you have, out of these students that you have, do you have any idea about their VPK status? You don't?
I don't.
I think you.
Yeah, I mean, small community, I could probably, but then that's not super fair. I gotta be careful about that, so I just don't know.
You had said this is 4-year-olds by September 1st, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So when I say 5-year-olds, I'm talking 5-year-olds by September 1st.
Yeah, so, but those 3-year-olds that were interested will then be 4 years old by September 1st, or?
No, there'll be 3 September 1st.
So, and that's just to be eligible for
They're not eligible
Looking at
for,
taking 3-year-olds, I guess, is what I'm asking, and I thought we were only taking 4-year-olds and older.
I put it up here as a possibility. I mean, I think, given the Head Start used to take 3-year-olds. And so when the Head Start classroom left, we said there's a demographic of 3-year-olds who are potentially not getting access to programming. We as a board could decide to do a day of 3-year-old programming if you want.
Okay.
I don't know that that's the right direction personally, but I wanted to make sure you're aware of that there have been people interested in programming.
So it's just historically, we've required them to be 4 years old by September
In order
1st.
to get voluntary pre-kindergarten, the VPK funding, they have to be 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why we've prioritized 4-year-olds, because we had enough kids to fill those slots and identified it as a kindergarten readiness program.
Okay, sorry for being thick.
No, it's
Just
good. I
trying
mean,
to
here's the thing,
clarify.
do you have those questions? Somebody out there has those questions, so 100%. Please keep asking.
So when you're sharing and you're talking about the VPK program and you're talking about that, we've got potential fee schedules to consider, right? We don't know. It's like we just graduated from college, we got a degree, and we think we're gonna get a good job, and we're just gonna bank on it. Let's go buy a new boat, a new truck, and a house, and just hope our job comes in and works out, right? So we got all that going on, but I feel like the other half of the discussion we have is this, the discussion about Bright New Beginnings, right?
Sure.
So, and then they're requesting information on what the schools would be charging for them, and that would determine whether or not they're interested in being here, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have a concrete number as to what they would be charging for kids to be here, correct?
Correct.
And so there's a possibility, and this is the question I have, and formed as a statement, there's a possibility that if we put our potential fee schedule for the VPK program at such a dollar value, it might be more cost effective for that family to go into Bright New Beginnings, which would actually then lower our students into the VPK, which puts us in the red, perhaps, right?
Yes, it's a hypothetical, yep.
So, I mean, to me, this is a little bit more complicated than just a fee schedule on VPK, because we've got so much more going on right now that's fluid.
Yes. Welcome to my brain in the last month.
So, I guess, and I don't want to say we have to, but just for the sake of discussion, is there a way we can put a questionnaire, because there's folks probably watching here today that have kids there, and this is everyone's wondering where their child might be going, right? Bright New Beginnings have this opportunity. We do have short-term daycares in the community. There's benefits to that. Can we put a survey out or put something out so the folks with their kids can we gather some information before we start making these decisions, maybe a little bit more from the community on it? Do you think we get a...
What are you looking to ask, I guess would be my question.
Number of students, I mean, primarily is number of students with interest in Bright New Beginnings who plan on, you already have 16 here.
And that's after a lot of hubbub and conversation both last year and this year about pre-K.
And so one of the questions I'd be posing there would be, if you are unable to secure a spot in the VPK program, would you be interested in Bright New Beginnings or in a house daycare if there was availability? Maybe it's no. Maybe it's yes. So then we kind of...
Yeah. I mean, I think you've gotten quite a good response, right? I mean, I've heard numbers flying around, and I don't know. I've heard like 29 kids.
Probably it's higher than that, but that's for like 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, and I imagine there's some duplicates.
I'm sure.
Right, like who have both said interested in put an application in with me and put an application in with her. So I think yes. I mean, my hesitation about a survey is that I'm not totally sold it's going to change our approach. I mean, we both this year and in future, last year, this year, and in future years are going to have enough demand to require 2 classrooms. Now, whether that's 2 classrooms, ours and Bright Beginnings, or us doing 2 separate classes as 2 days a week, where we do a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday, that's a possibility. So I think, yes, we can get more information. I would be a little nervous about kicking the can down the road, personally, but.
Real quick, one thing that'll help me out, your daycare provider numbers. I don't know if you want to go back to that slide real quick. Where did those come from? Are those actual, I'm guessing, why is there a $35 per week difference? Is it the age of the kids or something?
No, those are different providers. So I asked, anecdotally, asked a few folks, about 10, how much do you pay for daycare per week? The lowest I got was $125, the highest I got was $160.
Okay.
So that's a range.
So realistically, if we were, I guess that's $500 a month, would definitely not be conflicting with any of the daycares. And where is the 400? I'm looking at your different fee schedules going on here.
So you're looking for...
Your medium high correlates fairly well with the daycare.
It's a higher daycare.
Well, no, even the lower. I mean, if you figure 76 to 100% is 480, and then, yeah, the 100 to 125 does correspond with the higher end of the daycare.
Yep.
I mean, in my mind, that's the one that we should look at because it corresponds fairly well with the daycares.
Sure.
And the other thing, I think we're pretty much locked into 20 kids. I don't think it's financially feasible to do more because you're already spending $130,000 on sunk costs just for teachers.
But there could be more if they did the every other, because then you're not
Oh, yeah, no,
spending that.
I'm fine with that. I'm just saying, but to expand more than 20 in a class. And then,
Right, you're talking go to 2 classes.
Yeah, going
Yeah.
to 2 classes.
Correct,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, if
Which
you
is-
want to mix and match and
can
all that, yeah,
happen,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Because
As
that's-
long as we just stick with the one teacher and one parent.
Right,
yeah, it
yes,
doesn't really matter.
because that's the other piece of, if you increase to another class, you don't increase your VPK money, right? You're still at 15 to 20 slots. I don't foresee us getting another 15 or 20 slots. We're gonna stay at 15 to 20. So yes.
But you have
I agree.
more students paying the fees to
Yeah,
bring,
right.
As long as they're not, yeah, as long as they're not,
which could be covered by CCAP, which, I think the thing that comes to my mind is historically, with Head Start here, families of every income level had an option to send their kid to a kindergarten prep.
Yeah.
Like, without a large cost that is more than daycare, or, you know what I mean? Like, I just think of like the variety of incomes in our community, and if with what has happened and with Head Start leaving, if we're now having families that might not qualify for assistance, but could be right on that like 46% line where it's like, you could have it fully paid for, but you make, a
Yeah.
little too much, where then that could like significantly impact the family's like budget as well.
Especially like, and I don't know,
'Cause-
what everybody's daycare arrangement is, but sometimes, even with
Right.
the school schedule, they still need daycare. And
Yeah.
I think that at too high of a level, they won't, I know there are families who will say, I'm not paying this amount and daycare.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
And people who would say, I'm gonna pay the premium to go to Bright New Beginnings, which is, of course, like a family choice.
Yeah,
Whereas you can make that choice to pay that, but some families can't. So that's where I fall in, like, we've had these options for more than 20 kids, whereas like now we're limited to this 20. So if like somehow there's a way to like, so we're not turning kids away and making it still affordable.
I completely agree with you. You know, the question nagging back here is can the school's budget afford it? You know, 'cause of course we want it to be affordable, but and it's so tough when we don't know how many kids,
Yeah.
and where the numbers are gonna land, right?
Well, and-
So, I mean,
to your point about gathering information, when I say we've got overlapping, there's no doubt in my mind, because this has been a moment of panic for parents for the last 2 years now. There are kids on my list, and the same kids are on her list. And so, at some point, they gotta make a decision about where they're gonna go. But
How many, I don't think of that information, like how many 4-year-olds do we think we have in the county? I mean,
I gotta be a little careful.
you have
and
something
obviously
to
not
add,
all
then-
of them are going to choose one of these two options, but.
Yeah.
Turn
Historically,
your microphone on. There you go.
There you go.
like historically, in years past, have we ever not, like the school readiness program, have you ever not met 20 students?
Like, that where we've been short 20
Yeah,
students.
like you've been short a couple students.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I mean, it hasn't happened since I've been here.
yeah.
So,
But that's
past
only our
4 years.
readiness program, not including the Head Start, like who was provided for with Head Start.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now that's like floating.
So assuming that you were probably maybe only short for your school readiness program because they maybe qualified for Head Start, is that why?
Yeah. I
Whereas
don't-
this, so now,
We also play that roller coaster with
Yeah.
population.
yeah, so now the alternative being school readiness short because lower income children are going to Head Start. School readiness is going to be short because families are deciding to go with a private, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is?
Yeah, I think that's some of the concern.
Okay.
And when I say concern, like I said in the beginning, I am in favor of Bright Beginnings because I do think it takes the pressure off of our program to serve everybody.
Yeah.
And I think the concern about cost is fair, but if there is an option, you are inevitably going to get people who choose to do that, which is fine. That is the family choice piece. But it does mean, okay, now I'm not panicking about, okay, do we have 20? Do we not have 20? Do we have 20? Do we not have 20? You know, do we have 27? The other piece that I will, so when you ask how many kids do we have, I have gone through our census numbers. I would pull it up. I don't want to share private information on a public meeting though, so I'm not going to go look at that. I don't know what the formal number is. I do know I have gone through and called all of the people who are on the census list that I did not have, not had contact with. There was like another 3 or 4, some of whom said, we're good on daycare, no worries. I have heard rumor of another family moving in who we think is going to have a pre-K kid this age, but I don't have them on my roster because they aren't on the census and they haven't enrolled yet. And I imagine there are kids who, come July, who are not as well connected with this, are going to say, oh, I got to put my kid in, I wonder if there's some pre-K spots open. That happens every year. So if we're at 16 now, I feel pretty confident that we'll stay high in the high teens, if not hit a full 20 by September.
If I had a guess on the census, I'm sure it's probably between 20 and 40 kids. That's
right.
Pretty consistent with what we've seen class sizes. One thing I'm going to bring up, so what's the purpose of Head Start and pre-K? Like really, what's the purpose of it?
Research shows, and I have not done specific research, so I can back this up at some point with some more time, that early childhood learning significantly advances students' achievement later on, specifically when recorded at upper elementary. Those students who have had opportunities in early childhood education settings do better once they hit upper elementary.
So is it for trying to get all the kids advanced, or was its intention to bring at-risk kids up to the level?
Yes, I think it's the at-risk, and that's why the VPK is based on finances.
We've got a hand up back there. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm the early childhood special ed teacher, and I also work with I have a 3rd grade student this year. Pre-K is super important for developing early social skills too, and studies are now correlating that kids who are attending preschool that's like play-based learning are having better social skills, which as a whole we can say are lacking in general anymore. And so that having those VPK Head Start programs really helps those kids to develop that and gives them an opportunity to just even be away from their parents and stuff where some parents can't afford daycare but they could go to VPK because it's free, or they go to Head Start because it's paid for. I know with my special needs kids that I have that are very high needs kids, I've had one in particular in mind, came as a 3-year-old for Head Start, couldn't sit at a table, wouldn't respond to their name, many of these things, and now as a 4-year-old in Head Start, who we work with very closely, is sitting at a table to eat, requesting things from us, and has made significant progress, even with only 50% attendance for Head Start last year. So those things, and those kids who do struggle maybe more, if we can catch them earlier, the sooner we can help them provide the services that they need to get them where they need to be,
Yep.
whether it's on level or at their level.
Nope, I agree with that. It's just I wanted to try and make sure we kept this at its actual intent, and its intent is to help the at-risk kids and everything, and instead of just looking at it as school-provided daycare, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think we need to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and when you say at risk, are you thinking price-wise? Like
No, just developmentally,
Yeah,
like
okay.
whether they're ready for school. It's to help them get ready for
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Yes.
I mean, that's the intention of the entire program, unless I'm
Yeah,
mistaken.
100%.
And so, I mean, obviously, they use the financial reference as a point. So I don't know if there's any other way to identify, like if they don't meet the financial incomes, to identify whether or not, like if you have 10 kids who want 5 spots, how do you pick? Do you go first come, first serve?
Yeah.
Or is there actually a way to assess the kids and figure out who needs it more?
That's a great question, and one that it's currently on a first come, first served basis. I mean, we take applications and mark when they're received. I think it would be worth us evaluating that process to figure out if there's a better way to qualify kids. And I think this VPK qualifier might be a way to do that. That you get into the class if you can get a VPK spot over somebody who can't. I don't know. That raises some questions too. But
You had
They do 3-year-old screeners. Jenny Krause does that every year in May. We do 3-year-old screeners, so we do start identifying kids who are more maybe socially and academically at risk at that 3-year-old age, and then a lot of time, like Brianne and my hope is that they would previously get into Head Start as a 3-year-old, so that we could then start the process of like a formal evaluation if that were the case, or making sure they're making the adequate progress. We also have for identifying those really low needs, they do have Help Me Grow referrals and stuff like that. So
Here's the magic question: can we use that information to pick the kids?
I mean,
Yes,
It would
that's
be
part of the criteria
available.
for VPK. It's not just financial. There's a list of things that deem the kid to be at risk. So any of those criteria, the screening, that's why they require it,
Okay.
would identify kids.
So I think if we look at it from this angle, it may help us make decisions.
Just a question, Lexi, are you able to go into, example, a private daycare room or is it different, because I know, because aren't there some home things, how would that?
Brianne and I often service our birth through age 3 students, and those can be at-home visits, or some parents who have had kids in daycares have requested they drop them off and then we take them to daycare. So we've done it that way. With a private pre-K, that would be something that I think would have to be different. Like the parent would still have to probably bring their 3-year-old or their 4-year-old to the school for their services. We couldn't just go grab them probably.
Yeah.
The parent would have to, or we'd have to come up with some sort of policy for that.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be able to do how Head Start has the paras that we have, that type of need probably wouldn't be able to be met in a private preschool.
Okay.
So, whereas Head Start, we can push in for our very high needs special ed kids, or I push in, or I pull them out and do it that way. So I think private preschool would have to be looked at differently though, just because that age.
Yeah, thank you.
good question. So just to follow up, this one is identified through health and developmental screening with a potential risk factor that may influence learning.
Good.
Yeah, that's where that would fall.
Have we used that very much in the past to pick the kids who are funded, or has it mainly just been financial? Everyone just talks about the financial.
Well,
That's the reason why
Until
I-
recently, if they were 4 by
September 1st.
1st, you had a seat, they were in. So we didn't have to look at so much at the finances like Head Start had to as much, but that's changed now, so.
Okay.
You raised the concern about, everything's kind of up in the air based on funding and and what might happen. if something happens and funding is pulled for this, does that funding impact our school in any other ways besides just the VPK program that you're?
Well, any expenses beyond what's budgeted for VPK and supported would come out of the general fund. So if it runs in the deficit, it comes out of the general fund.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, maybe if I think he's asking, is there a VPK pot of money? And if that gets shut off, it only affects VPK. Is that what you were going for?
I don't think there's anything else attached to that.
Depends on what the legislature does with it. Until recently, no, that's been one allocation. And like I said before, they put X dollars in there, divided up by the number of seats that districts have asked for. And in the last 4 years, there's been more dollars available than seats took up. And that's why, I don't know, June, July, August, somewhere later, when they figure out how many. October.
Yep, October is when the reapplication.
Then we get reapplication process. So if we have more, that's how we got from 15 to 20. It's because there was enough dollars there and not enough usage across the state that they reshuffle the dollars around.
You gotta apply for that again, right?
You have to apply for it.
But you're anticipating the 15 seats.
Based on historical.
Historically. And we find out that in May?
Yeah, that's currently when it's kind of forecasted the legislative session will end.
It's highly unlikely that the state would go back on the 15.
So as far as our, when we talk about fee schedules and everything like that, is there an option or an opportunity to wait and decide on that until we get those numbers? Or, I mean, that's getting pretty late, I understand that.
What I think the board should consider is, number one, we want to provide opportunities and choices for families. I think the district can dedicate one classroom with a teacher and a para. I think we can, there's a little bit of risk, but I think we can count on the 15 seats for the upcoming fiscal year. Doesn't mean it will be 15 the next year, because there is, and I haven't looked at the forecast that came out today. I haven't had a chance to look at it, if that's changed at all. The deficit at the state is coming in the tails down a little ways, so I don't think there's going to be any new money necessarily, but I think we can count on the 15 seats. And for us, it's about $78,000, just based on I'm just doing the rough math with the formula allowance. So we're in that, we have a shortfall. We have about 113,000 revenues, how I look at it, coming from the school readiness, VPK. So we're at that $30,000 to $40,000 of, is that coming out of the general fund, or how do we cover that? We don't want it to come out of the general fund right now because we don't have a lot of extra dollars in there right now. So I would suggest that you look at setting the fee schedule at the high, medium, 160 per week, and it kind of falls back on what Boyd was talking about with it's comparable to the daycares. It's actually a little bit higher, but we provide more services in some ways, perhaps. Maybe go to a 5-day week. So parents and families can choose. They can kind of, this is the worst case scenario. I'm going to be at the whatever percentage. This is kind of what we're looking at right now. And they can make a decision based on that. And what we can do once we get hard dollars from the state, we have numbers in the classroom, reevaluate where we are with our revenue and expenses, and where are we falling short. Is it 40,000? Is it 15,000? Because you can always adjust or reimburse families, because we don't want to we're not trying to make money on this, we're just trying to cover our expenses. So I think setting it high enough where we hope we can cover our expenses And it turns out while we're getting more seats, we're sitting flush. Then you work backwards and say, well, we can reduce our fees to cover expenses and reduce it to this dollar amount. At least you give parents and families kind of the worst case scenario. That's what we're anticipating, so they can kind of look at their finances and what works best for their family. And
The other piece I'd add on that is that with some blessing, I could qualify people for a VPK spot right now, right? We could take, I don't really know how that's going to happen with the state, but I think between Jeff and I, we can come up with let's look at the list. We'll have the families who've applied fill out a form. If any of these apply to you, you get a VPK spot, which, no?
Yeah,
I don't want to get audited and have a bunch of people.
Well, I'd still go with, how many qualified kids do we expect to have as 4-year-olds? I mean,
I think the safe bet is, I don't think we can have 15. We know that's how many seats we
how many
have.
seats we'll have, but will we have 15 kids that qualify? Because of
Between finances and screening, we'll be close. I don't know how you guess that unless you know the families and start going through that process.
Well, historically, have we been at 15 kids who qualified?
We've never had to qualify people before. It's always just been on age.
Oh.
So I don't have any paperwork from the state. I don't know how they'll verify it. I mean, he talks about being audited. Who knows? I mean, we don't have any guidance from MDE about how to qualify people.
I'll ask I'm sorry, I don't know her name, the 3-year-old screener.
Lexi?
It's Jenny Krause.
Oh, Jenny? Okay.
I'm Lexi Flores.
Lexi Flores.
Okay.
Jenny Krause does the screening.
Jenny Krause sets it all up and gets like the census, and that's how we get a hold of all those.
But the census has to be about 30 or 20 to 40 kids, again, based on the way the classes normally pan out. So of those 20 to 40 kids, how many have a alert, whatever?
Like special needs or something? Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on the year. Like, I have a bunch of 4-year-olds this year that next year will be in kindergarten and are very high needs. Whereas in the first grade class this year, I have 1 student. So, like, it really depends on the group of kids. A lot of times with the screening, it kind of flags them, okay, this could be a potential delay, so then we want them in the preschool program so we can start monitoring, and then when teachers, like if Nicole Gate or Nicole Fiala, they've had concerns and those students had screened low, then we would go further and do a different screener first, and then, or if there was like very apparent needs, you could do it a different way, but that's getting technical.
I mean, so there's this screening piece. There's also, we've never asked about income for any VPK application. So I don't know. Like, I don't know how many people are going to hit at.
The screening sounds ridiculously variable. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like it could be anywhere from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
It could be like some years we have way more kids that screen high, or if I'm already seeing a student on my caseload at 3 years old, we don't re-screen them because they already have qualified as a student with a disability.
Okay.
I can give you some projected kindergarten numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's what I was
I'll go back to 21, 22, we had 36, and I think these came out I haven't cross-referenced, but I think they're pretty close to what we have. 22, 23, we're at 40. 23, 24, we're at 34. 24, 25, we projected for 35. I think that's kind of where our kindergarten class size is. It's right there at 35, close to that. 25, 26, we're projecting 37. Now this is kids going into kindergarten.
Yeah.
So that'd be
It's right
that
now.
cohort group.
Yep.
26, 27, we're down to 27. 27, 28, we're 34. 28, 29, 28. And 29, 30, we're down to 20.
There's also a part of me that wants us to be thinking about this beyond next year as well. Because the 4 years I've done it, been chaotic, right? We're just playing this like,
I hate to,
huh?
I hate to burst your bubble, but
It's always been chaotic?
it's always been chaotic. It's a small community.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
it's-
know.
It fluctuates with birth rates, and, we have one year we're at 27, the next year we're at 34.
And then there,
It's just something you wrestle with.
Got a question.
before we move on, yeah.
Did you say like this, the free and reduced price meals as an automatic qualifier, which they're changing the term there? But that's something that if a family is already receiving, say, medical assistance or CCAP, can the county share that information with you to say, these families are already receiving these services with social services, so you can kind of already plan for what those VPK, like,
Yeah, I gotta be careful on that, because there is a process called direct certification. Where
yep.
people on certain assistance programs get direct certified.
but then, so
But I don't
the
know what
county
programs in particular.
the county could share that information with you as a direct qualifier?
I don't
think so.
No, okay. Well,
If the
the
family
family
was
would have to share with
if the
you
family
that
was
they're
to-
having that
somebody would
service.
share.
And that's what Head Start that's exactly what Head Start did with their applications, is they captured that in their application if they were receiving any of those services.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
So-
definitely a way to do it,
Yeah.
for sure. We just have,
So you could.
We have never done it, yeah.
Yeah, so if you change your application, you would know how many students are qualifying for VPK before the school year even starts, right?
potentially, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yep. And
So it
it
wouldn't be so much of like an unknown.
wouldn't be the unknown it is right now.
Yeah,
Right,
yep,
like next
okay.
year, my application will look very different.
Yeah.
So that we're capturing that information ahead of time.
For sure.
And you'll notice on the app, there's like, is an English language learner?
Yeah.
As a parent who's a seasonal laborer?
Yeah,
So I think yes. Now,
Yeah.
the piece that I get a little nervous about is the verification of that. So if MDE were to come in and say, can you prove how much each of your
Yeah.
families is making? Am I asking for pay stubs? Am I asking, and that's where it starts, I get a little nervous because I don't have a process for it yet.
Is it on us or on them though? Because then, if you ask for the document, do you fall within these ranges and they say yes, and then somebody audits us or however.
It's a great
it's
question.
Like, well, this is what they
Told me.
told me and signed for, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I think it wouldn't be on us, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. That's where we haven't gotten any guidance from MDE on.
So another point to discuss then was also the number of days per week, right? And I think I heard, Jeff, you mentioned, like 5 days. Can you explain, why you're leaning towards that as a recommendation?
I think if you're gonna charge families, that's.
Right. Because if you're
And then-
paying
And
160,
it would be up to the parents if they didn't feel their child was capable. But if they wanted to not have them come every day, because it's not mandated attendance.
like an
Yeah,
example would be if they're paying 140 or 160 a week
Yeah.
for 4 days, then they're paying a drop-in rate possibly for that 5th day, which is like $40.
If we can get a drop.
If they can get a drop-in.
So I just think,
Which would
I think
make
you
it
set it up
easier,
so
yeah.
if they're paying the set fee, whatever it lands on for them, that they're paying for 5 days.
Actually,
Now, if
honestly.
they don't want to take
For
5
any
days.
scenario, 5 days makes more sense
Yeah.
than 4 days.
Yeah, especially if we can get the prep time for the teacher and
Right,
stuff.
yeah,
That-
we need to
that's-
make sure that's
I think the only,
there.
I agree, I just think the only thought a parent might have for concern is for a child, a young child, whether 5 days is too much, but I know they come home and they crash, as far as their.
Yep.
And then also on that 5th day, you have the teacher, and you have the para who are also having to deal with that too, so.
And that's why what's nice about the mandate, there isn't mandatory attendance. If a family thought that they're,
And I agree, but as, I'm sure a parent would be saying, well, but there's a mandatory fee, and the frustration might be where, the fee's the same whether you go 5 days or 4
Sure.
days, so, and I
And I don't know how we
get it.
could get around that budget wise, if we had the dollars,
I
we'd
agree
say,
with you.
yeah.
here's 3-day AP, here's 4 days a week, here's, I don't know how we could manage that right now. 'cause it'd be- But I think we need to give families some opportunity to have the information and decide on what options we can
But I
provide.
think there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff to think about, as far as the fees amounts and whatnot, but I mean, I think it's, maybe folks would agree, kind of we gotta look at this very closely so it does not put us in a worse financial situation, you know, and we can't be like, all of a sudden, you mentioned, you know, it's $40,000 is what we're kind of in deficit on with the program,
Good, yeah,
right?
potentially.
And
That's if we get 20, that's if we get 20 students.
it all depends on the VPK numbers.
Yeah.
It's so there's very,
With
very little.
her, with the 160, she's underestimating, right? That,
You're
you're
looking at,
estimating that we're only gonna get 10 VPK.
right,
Where we could get 15, so again, I think also what Jeff mentioned of the possibly reimbursing families if,
I think.
like, I think you need to plan for like, it's a very uncertain time right now, especially at legislature, which is really what hangs on this a lot. So if we're planning, unfortunately, for the worst, then, okay, we got 15 spots, but we planned for 10, so we have this surplus, and it could go back to families. So then we're also kind of covering ourselves in these uncertain times as well.
my only hesitation on that is that I know parents are anxious to know what's gonna happen. And even if we don't have, answers from the legislature, and we wait for them through mid-May, late May, June,
Right.
people are gonna find other places for their students.
So like picking a fee is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
which is what they would need to know, is a fee,
sure,
right?
right,
And that there's a program,
yeah,
which there is a program. I think also a helpful, like, for sure answer, I think to help us make decisions. Not that it would affect our budget, but I think just like the whole picture of it is that like CCAP option. So I think that might affect
Yeah,
people's decisions too of,
well, it would only,
again, the affordability of it.
yep, I think if they qualify for CCAP,
Right.
they're gonna automatically qualify for VBK.
VPK.
But what if there are 16 VPK kids? Do you know what I mean? Like if,
oh, I
like
see.
numbers wise,
Yeah.
if you can't fit everyone into that 15 box, there are
So
5 other kids that need,
yeah,
Percentage
based
of
on my
it.
conversation with Sherry today, I feel confident. We fall into this non-licensed care provider as we are in a public school. We are a public school provides a program for students ages 33 months and older. Right, so we are that category. We would have to get registered with the county, but yes, I think that is a strong 95%
because we have to
possibility.
think of what, again,
Yeah.
what we're talking about, what left is very much an income-based program.
Yep.
So we have to fill that void.
Yes.
Yep.
I hope I'm wrong, but my biggest concern with it is we might lose kids to, if it's for the discussion right in the beginning, so we might not receive $1 and we might only have kids in here that are VPK eligible for, $60 a month.
Yeah.
And this program isn't gonna be supplemented and subsidized by one other penny. And that's, and then
Which is what it currently
then we're,
is.
rough math is what, Jeff's pointing out, and I think the numbers kind of show is, all right, now we get $40,000, we gotta pull from somewhere.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what's gonna happen. And
It's a
So
possibility.
My 30 to 40,000, that's that 160 a week fee that we would have to to charge.
Yeah.
That 160 would cover that 30 to 40.
Yeah, if we had, but you're saying what if we didn't have people to pay that, but
Yeah.
back in the day, school readiness before VPK used to do a lot of fundraising too.
And they used to charge.
And they used to charge. In fact, way going back now, it used to be, that's the number of days that they could provide preschool is based on our school readiness revenue and how much fundraising was done to cover the cost. So that might be another piece to pull out, is going back to some of the old fundraising that used to be done that used to.
What would they do for fundraising?
I can't remember. Were you involved with all that?
Pre-K carnivals,
Carnivals, yeah.
different parent-child activities.
But currently, we do not charge a fee.
Because they're all
So when
VPK
we're
qualified.
operating on the VPK qualified.
Yeah.
Under the old qualifiers.
Old qualifiers at 20 kids, 20 spots, fully funded.
And there was a time where the board said, we'll pay the difference out of the general fund.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the other piece I think that's, the pressure right now is because we are in a
Correct.
tough financial position. There have been,
That's,
yeah, yes, unfortunately,
that's
but
why
that's where
this
we're at.
conversation has lasted this long.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead and.
Do you think that, like, Craig, if you're, or if the board is worried that the VPK students are going to be like compromised or wanting to go to Nicole's Bright Beginnings, is that something, like, this is just an idea, or is that something that you could include in the contract, saying that, like, there will be no competing for these like children, there's like no competition, like if, like, the school would prioritize themselves, if we're gonna offer you this position within the school, this room in the school, we're gonna prioritize ourselves, and we would like first opportunity at the, kids that qualify for VPK.
Isn't that the parent's choice though? You
Yeah.
can't force the parents not to
go there, yeah.
or to the school.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, by my question, let's be very clear. I mean, we have a shortage, we have a need for more childcare
Yeah.
facilities and providers.
And my goal is not,
Yeah. And so my questioning isn't, we could talk about that program, in a separate conversation here, but I'm not suggesting that that's necessarily a terrible idea of having that program here. I'm not saying that. But, yeah, I don't, I guess, after kind of hearing it, digesting it, looking at the numbers, I'm having trouble believing that this is actually gonna pay for itself this year. Or, it's gonna be,
We might have to do some carnivals.
yeah,
But I mean, we're
You're saying
looking at
this year or like this
coming
coming
year,
school
this
year?
coming
Okay.
the 25, 26, we're looking, I think I have that. When do we do screening? Oh, shoot.
May 1st and 2nd is screening.
I don't think we could really decide anything before the screenings are done, quite
that
frankly.
was my point earlier,
Yeah.
but I don't
But a
think
lot of that's your 3-year-olds mostly, if I remember right.
But through that's,
Oh, they would have actually already been screened.
Yeah.
So,
Most of the kids on my list have been
Have
screened.
already been
Okay.
screened.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have how
that
many?
would-
16
that
on
would-
your
that would
list?
make sense.
16
Yeah.
with a possible 2 others, and that does not account for anybody who's moving in or slow to get on the ball.
so arguably the student number, the pupil number is there.
Correct.
I mean,
Yes.
it's just where they land financially is a little bit up in the air.
So this is a tough year, because that's a small cohort group.
yeah,
compared- That's your 27 coming into kindergarten, and
yeah, and the other caveat too, as a parent, we have to pay for preschool, I'm gonna pay for private and go, you know, that route, which was gonna take from this. In my,
What's based on it, the quality?
Just based on the, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Back when my two oldest, we had to pay, that was back in that time frame. And we opted not to, and we paid for somewhere else for them to go and get that.
I think that's a little bit of our rationale when we talk about Phi-Ed, we talk about music and library. We have non-cost resources that we can offer this classroom as enticements, as well as the 5 days, right? It does not cost us more money to offer a 5th day, but does make us more enticing. So I think we're trying to think that way.
Yep.
And there's certain things that I need
Right.
to know too, because I'm gonna have to have a certain amount of kids, a certain amount of employees. There's certain things that aren't gonna work for me if I'm not at a certain level.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so you're in the same spot that we kind of are at this point. in time.
So, I haven't brought this up before, but it's something for the board to consider. The school doesn't have to provide preschool. There's some communities where it's totally privately run. And that takes all the financial risk away from the district. I guess the biggest thing we want to ensure is that there's programming available for families. So I do have to bring that up. That is how it's done in some communities, where the school does not provide any preschool. It's all private run.
I think we could afford column C or column D, well, definitely column B, but I don't think we'd want to go much
Lower than
beyond
that.
column B.
I was trying to, in this column, this last column F, get a clearer picture of like what Craig was saying. So let's say we do get all 15, minimum 15 spots covered. We have this deficit to fill. So then you take 35.
Like $100 a week
Yeah,
for families if you split it amongst all.
right, the other 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I had kind of done that
Yeah.
math, and it was that medium low $100.
Well, I'm getting more than that. 35,000 divided by, let's say 9 months, because that's about how much we run. 39.70 a month divided by 4 weeks is about 1,000 a month. No, that's not right. I'm trying to do math on the fly here.
Would you split that?
35,000 divided by 9 months would be how much you need to recoup per month, divided by 5 families.
Divided by 5 families. Yeah, so about $800 a month.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't do it a month.
Which would be like 2
20.
a week.
No.
Okay.
Well, and we could, and that was my thought on the $60 a month per family was
Yeah,
you're taking some of those families and, because we can charge for wraparound extended care, right? We're giving way more hours than what VPK requires. So, that was my thought on the $60. So then you take,
So basically, worst case scenario, we would hope would be medium high.
yeah,
And if we can adjust and bring it down
based on funding,
based on the funding
Yeah.
and the numbers and how everybody falls, then we will.
yeah. I can do that. I can work with that.
You are looking at, so your budget is for 145,000 and you have 20 kids, that's $7,250 a kid. If it's the 120,000, that's $6,000 a kid. So the kids who qualify are subsidized by $5,000. So you're, I mean, if you go kind of go in between, you're looking at about $6,800 to $7,000 per kid of actual. and 5,000. So then if you had do we, if they qualify, do we charge them nothing or do we charge something? Because then if
That's
you,
the 60.
That would be the wrap.
because then if you did the,
Well, without.
I mean, I picked 60 because it was working, but we could pick whatever number you want.
because then if you did the like the subsidized one, if they could pay $200 a month, then then it all kind of works out. And anybody who isn't subsidized, if you have them kind of meet the same criteria, then.
And then that CCAP money could potentially cover that $200 a month if you have, because keep in mind, the families that are qualifying for VPK are at a, potentially, I don't know that, but there are other qualifiers, but are qualifying on income basis. So $200 a month.
I know that preschool is valuable, it's very great and wonderful, I think it's a great thing. I am not sure if, or like my gut feeling and like I think kind of what people have expectations of is like, once you kind of like get out of paying daycare, like you hit that school age, I don't know, Nicole or any parents of like, okay, we're kind of like reaching that time where like I don't have to pay so much per week. So it's like having a fee the same as daycare would, I don't know, like if it would create more of that like competition.
It could, but realistically,
you know what I
until they
mean?
hit kindergarten, it's not school.
Yeah. And we are, sorry, Nicole, one of very few communities who currently don't charge. I mean, most places are charging for pre-K time.
Right, I'm just saying like less than
Sure.
a daycare.
Yeah. I think like,
Microphone.
sorry, Camille and we were back here talking and just saying that like, and I had said this earlier meeting too, like I was fully anticipating this year paying something. So it was a pleasant surprise that I didn't have to. So I feel as if you're being transparent and upfront with the parents at the time of application and acceptance into the program and saying, and setting it at the high mark, like you said, Robin, that like medium high, and they're anticipating to pay this, like then you put it back on the parent, right? And you're saying like, you're gonna pay this, and they're willing to pay that, and now you come back and you're like refunding them, or you're not even charging them, I think is like.
Or charging less.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, ideally, I do like the idea of not paying, like $16,000 in daycare for myself. But what you said, until kindergarten, I'm kind of anticipating that. But, yeah, I feel like, though, having a program within the school is ideal. Like what Jeff said, we don't have to offer this. Like the school doesn't have to offer this,
And
but.
if we can bring dollars in the community to help bring that cost down for people, I think that's a really good thing. Because otherwise, if we don't do it and take those dollars that we get from the state, then there's nothing out there to help people who need that help.
So how does the funding go as far as lunches for these students?
It's free. Right? Okay, I can double check that, but I'm almost positive.
Every student
no.
is free.
Yeah.
Even for,
None of my kids have ever had to pay for a breakfast or
for
lunch.
But is
VPK,
the school paying for it though? Is something going to the school budget?
Oh, sorry.
I think
The
Jill,
meals is a statewide.
yeah, we should ask Jill on
Because the
that.
kids aren't
because they're
pupils.
technically not,
So
Oh.
is the school having to pay for their lunches?
I don't think so.
Where's she?
we would charge.
Yeah.
If they didn't qualify for free meals, then the school would charge.
No, we pay for milk, but we don't pay for any meals.
Yeah.
No,
So maybe the
it runs
VPK
through Jill.
qualifies for the, I think that kids in Head Start are being billed for lunches,
Yeah,
aren't they?
but Head Start's, I think, paying for that.
Okay.
And that,
I don't know the kids are, I don't know if that's coming out
So
of.
if you have kids in your program that are not VPK, they may be charged.
that's my point, is like, are there hidden fees with this that we haven't looked at?
Yeah, I can ask. Yeah.
Because, yeah, if they're not counting as a student at the school because of the program,
I mean, Jill just went through a lunch audit, so
She'll know.
she'll know, and I haven't heard anything about that being wrong. So, like, really, I don't think they pay. I think they all qualify. Now, maybe they're all qualifying because they're VPK.
yeah. And the ones that don't.
And do they get two, do they take 2 meals? Do they take breakfast and lunch?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Well, I know last year we had an agreement where we billed them for meals. Now that might have changed since.
Oh, last year.
Yep.
But like, you could kind of quickly estimate if they don't qualify, if like, you were gonna say, oh, what if we have 10 kids who aren't in BPK, and you could quickly estimate if the school, if that is not covered, how much the school is gonna work for that.
And Head Start got funding to pay for those meals, so it's just kind of a.
I guess the punchline to my question is if we find out the non-BPK kids, if that is an extra expense, if we're looking at this medium high, would that be appropriate, to have that include the meals, or would we want that, billing them on top of their fees?
we could.
We'd have to incorporate,
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be one fee,
It does.
so.
We can figure out
All
how much.
pre-K?
Students are also eligible
Breakfast
if
and
their
lunch should be
school
for the
or
year
district
for them.
participates in the MSO.
But,
Oh.
if you give them 5 days a week,
Yeah.
throughout the whole
Yes.
school year,
So they're
it's a bit.
Yes.
If it was 5 kids.
But historically, we've also provided transportation for preschool. Some schools don't.
MDE says that preschool kids are included if the district participates in the program. So, just as an add-on to that.
Okay, I'm trying to do some quick math here and not relying on my own brain to do it. This minus 145. Okay, so we do what Boyd was talking about, and we say, okay, we're charging
$200
Two-
a month for the kids who do qualify.
Yeah, so this is $200 a month times 15 kids. If we get 15 slots, that's $3,000 a month times 9 months. Anybody correct me if that formula looks wrong, right? So your standard fees for everybody are $27,000 for those 15 kids. That's how much revenue we bring in. And then if we're doing the medium high, which we'll pick $640 per month, $640 per month at 5 students who are not VPK qualified, $32,000. No, that's wrong. No, that's right. And then $28,800 for the 9 months. That's $28,800 here, which puts us at $165 for $20,000 over budget. So we did
But
half
not
this.
everyone's gonna pay the 640 there on the sliding scale.
Right, that's assuming everybody
That's,
hits.
you're assuming the
I think that,
highest.
But I think 20,000 would be enough of a buffer
Yeah, well, so let's-
in the range.
So let's go down to,
Call it 500.
sure. So that brings you to 13,000 over.
well, 150 for the BPKs.
Yeah, because if we have families that qualify
Equals that's, that's too
financially, and then you charge them that much, that's quite a bit.
There we go. Thanks.
Thanks, you're a champion. Got some Excel nerds in the room.
Thank you.
Okay, so one that gets us 7,000, let's say we do 100 here. Right on the money.
If you have 15.
If you have 15, right?
And the argument is with the 500 here for non-BPK qualifiers, this is kind of still at the medium-high range, but you're reducing it because you're kind of at you got the sliding fee scale based on income, right?
Right.
So that's more of a realistic,
I actually think it would put us at this medium 145 a week
Right.
number, because that gets us at 580 for 100 to 125, 435 for 76 to 100.
Honestly, I think $500 a month for the kids who don't qualify is probably too low, because now we're undercutting a lot of the daycares, and I don't think we should do that,
Why not?
because we shouldn't.
Why?
Okay, now you got a government
But
subsidized
you also
entity
think
undercutting
of-
private businesses.
But it's age. Like, it's
Well, it could be, but
the
it's the
age
argument of whether or
range.
not you want to go to, and it all depends if they qualify or whatever.
We're already
and everything
undercutting
else.
daycare.
So
Because
for
they don't pay
example,
now, they don't
I
pay
can,
anything.
True.
I can speak personally. My 1-year-old right now is 160 per week. She will go down to 150 per week in 5 days when she turns 2. So that also is relative here too, for like the
Age.
school age kids could be at that 145 a week.
That's why I was asking
So-
about the criteria, because usually you're right, I mean, as the kids get older.
So
they
like
get
it could be right
certified.
on like
So-
par with what a
If we're on par
4-year-old.
with 4-year-olds in daycares, then yeah, I have no problem, but again, it's kind of, I mean, we run into this in other aspects too, like for us, it's the plowing, using the county equipment, and we don't want to undercut the private businesses, because that's not the,
$450 a week or something like that for my kids in daycare. So I don't think that's necessarily, I mean, based
I
on.
was just
what
basing
someone-
off the numbers
Oh,
that we were given.
I
so,
agree with you,
yeah.
I mean, but
And-
it's that fine line, because I think if you overprice it,
You're not
I
going to get
think
enough.
Then you're not
this-
gonna get
this-
anyone.
Just as we're
Oh,
kind
no,
of
I think-
budgeting things, families are budgeting, and they're gonna go to to another option, especially when we have a potential here of discussion of having,
Where
a new
it would
program
be
over
like
here.
what Jerem would say is like paying the premium. You're, you know, I mean
Paying the
essentially
premium, right.
it's like a private school, you're paying the premium.
yeah.
I
But
just
you
don't
gotta
want to
compare
undercut
choice.
them a lot. I mean, if for that age kid, if the $500 a month, if that's the going rate, then okay, that makes sense.
Right now, we can't, there's not enough daycare out there.
Yeah, the daycares aren't having any problems with filling their spots, I'll tell you that, yeah. I mean, and they too, like daycares, they can only accept, you know, one child within this age range. They can only accept this many children within this age range. Like, there's definitely, I don't think that should be a concern, is what.
Thank you for
Yeah.
your input, that helps.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. No, I'm saying like sincerely, like as
Like, I'm very
Like
much in
parents-
this season right now.
parents in the community, right, like parents in the community of, like, hearing that helps a lot.
The other folks, and would you mind turning on the mic there, Woody, first?
My only question was, would there be any consideration, the board was talking about the legality of undercutting a private business.
Yeah, good question. I'm not an attorney, just so.
Right,
just so
that
everyone
would
knows,
be a
but,
big
um,
question that would be answered
We'd be
before
doing
any
that
of this
now.
was done.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't-
doing that now, cause it's free,
Yeah.
or we're not charging,
I
I
won't
should
be able to
say.
sit here and give you a definite answer, but I can't imagine that there would be a restriction on one, you know, us setting it where our budget, you know, I mean, she took it down, where we're actually not losing and.
You're looking at this. Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, and to be very clear, I don't think that's our intent with any of these numbers by trying to undercut. I think my intent on trying to reduce it while trying to
Stay
stay
on
within budget
Yeah,
is because it's just a nod to the families in our community that we don't want to provide such a program where
and on
you're
the,
making it too rich, so we can't offer it to the kids, because
Right.
there are kids in the community, some more than others, where it's very, very valuable.
then there's the flip of the other side is, oh, that's our big moneymaker, so then there's also like the ethical part of that, is that like boosting your, if
Yeah, I
we're
don't think we're
changing,
making any money on
no,
it.
I'm saying if we change it though, then we're over budget. So then we are
Well,
like
then what you do is
boosting
you'll-
that up
then you
and
do it
making
is
that
what
up.
You lower it for the kids who qualify.
These kids? You're talking about like,
Yeah. I mean, the most you could change is $100, so you could go to, if,
But we could, as a board, decide to set that sliding scale where people are paying a premium.
we can do whatever we want.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying
You're
just
right.
the opposite end of it is
I agree.
like each side.
But,
I mean, at this, it's not exact, it's off by maybe $50, but I mean, like, if you, this is almost to the point where you're charging everyone the same rate, but the VPK kids are $5,000 less.
they get
per
a,
year.
yeah,
They get that
Yeah.
subsidy.
Yep.
yeah.
and that's why I asked that question early on, where did those, because the 500 is the lowest of the daycares. Goes 500 to 600, as I recall, or 680 or something.
That's
like
per
that.
month.
Per month,
Here.
yeah, they're all per month. That's
Yeah.
per month
Yeah.
too.
This is per week. 145 is per week.
Per week.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
He's
but
paying-
the
But
lowest
if
is
you're
what-
in the,
it's
like-
It's the 120,
You're looking at the middle,
yeah, I'm looking at the local daycare cost comparisons per month, $500 a month.
local daycare comparisons per week,
Look at the per month column.
the lowest is 100, I'm just doing this for the sake of folks in the
Okay.
back. Per week, the lowest, it would be 125 per week, per month, 500.
But keep in mind, this is based on a sliding fee scale, right? So we don't know where those 5 kids are gonna land outside of the VPK. So when we say 500, we're saying it's right in the middle here. It's an average. We could be charging more than
We're
that.
still gonna have a sliding scale, then yeah.
Yeah, could be charging people 725.
We're required by statute to
Yes,
have a.
we have to have a sliding
a
scale.
sliding
That's
scale.
why we're doing this, yeah. So, at the risk of looking at time and moving the conversation along, would you be amenable to me putting a proposal together for vote that we set the highest at this 145 a week? Do what you were saying in terms of set the highest amount at 145 a week. That's as much as a family would pay. And then we will hopefully figure out,
But we're
Poten-
recommending the medium high.
Yeah, with your pointer, you're just pointing at the medium,
oh, you want to do this?
because virtually your middle of the road is.
Oh,
at
okay,
4
sure.
feet.
Yeah,
So,
good
and
call.
your average, so that was our,
Yeah, that's your thought. Okay,
Yep.
so this 160 a week. And,
But that's like hopefully,
right. But
Very top
to the
end.
point of transparency, we say that's as much as we will charge. Here are all the ways in which you may qualify for other. I'll look into the CCAP stuff. The other piece I would like some direction on is, what would you like to do with Bright Beginnings? Do you want me to move forward on that in terms of contract discussions? Should we hold off on that to see what are your thoughts?
I think it would take another 2 hours to discuss it, honestly.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's as simple as just moving forward, yes, right? I mean, there's a lot more questions we have and answers to be had.
What makes it different than any of the other daycares, other than she needs other certifications and things like that? I guess it's another private entity that wants to use
Yeah.
empty rooms.
Yeah,
And we've already got 4 of them doing it.
that's a good point. I wasn't here for the other ones. I think that, I'm not saying no. I think it's a good idea to have new daycares in here. I think just budget-wise and logistics and, you know,
What was
we talked
the-
about the busing, the rates. I think, right in the beginning is waiting to hear on what our fees are gonna be before she decides on her fees. I think now that, we've talked a lot about these fees, I'd be interested in having questions and on where she's at with her fees compared to, where we're at.
I know, but we don't ask the daycares, I mean, it's a private thing that is
Yeah, what's
separate,
that
and we don't-
process, I guess?
We don't, I mean, they pay their monthly fee and they
We just
run.
got
What
done
did that
saying
look
there's a
like?
huge need for daycare.
Yep.
So,
What does the process look like? So like when, for example,
when we
I think
brought
the one
in
I go to was
daycares,
the, yeah, when they request, like someone comes and says, hey, I wanna use
well,
this
this happened
room.
2
Like,
years ago, kind of during the COVID years.
and yeah,
So we were just happy to get
yeah,
some people in the building that wanted to provide daycare. We had no discussions on
no like
what
board
their fees
discussion
were
or
or
fees.
anything like
Okay,
that.
that was what I
Most
was
kids
curious
don't
about.
ride the bus. If they want to order meals, back then they would pay for it.
Sure.
So we have the space and there's the need in the community is what drove that.
And we have a standard contract that we use for across those daycares, right? So this is, the standard of that is like vetted for insurance, vetted for, right? I mean, all of that's been through our
Yeah.
legal.
Yep, we charge, I can't remember what our rate is. It's not very much, 125,
Well,
130
we
a month.
started out at 100 and I
I
want
think
to
it
say.
started at 50, but.
Oh, I thought it was
Quick.
But
How did we come to the, I mean, how was that number decided? Is it per square foot, or what do we?
I'd have to go back and look. I think it was more for how much time, custodial time would we need
Yeah,
to
it was based
Yep.
off custodial
base
time.
off. I mean, it's very minimal. I would think with the Bright Beginnings, we'd prorate that based on capacity and stuff like that, because she has more room and space.
Does that include
Kids.
access to, copiers, school supplies?
No, they pay a fee if they want to use the
Laundry.
washer and dryer. None of them do.
I think they get use of the playground if it's about it.
When there's no one else out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, gym and playground if there's no one else there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So I went,
They're to me, in my mind, they are just as separate as the daycares.
I don't
Is
know
our-
how we could treat them any different, frankly.
Fair enough. Is our insurance increased at the school because we offer daycares here? We
No,
don't pay
not
a
to my
premium
knowledge.
above that?
not to my knowledge.
As I recall, it was because we require them
They
to
have-
carry the
there's language in
appropriate
there,
amount of
yeah.
insurance to cover.
A certain coverage amount.
Then all the daycares, you represent all the daycares.
And is, bus transportation?
I know, the only ones we do,
We have for Head Start.
Head
I mean,
Start and
I think
VPK.
that's part of what we would have to talk about with Nicole is what she would ask for. I think transportation might be tricky because if her schedule doesn't align with what the school schedule is, then we start,
The other daycares in the school, I guess?
Do not use
They're not
transit.
using bus transportation?
No.
Okay.
And with it being a separate entity in insurance and all
Yeah.
this other stuff, it's probably,
we would bus our VPK kids. in that.
Keep in mind too, Head Start was a separate entity. They were not part of the school had nothing to do with them, we just let them use our building.
But we did have
And-
an MOU with them.
And we had a relationship.
Yeah.
So if one provider comes in and another provider comes in and proposes that they would like to use the space, I mean, does this go out to the highest bidder?
No, we haven't had competition yet. So we've had people leave and someone else come.
we
They may not
can't,
be
we
interested.
can't have another daycare in here.
Yeah.
No.
we're at max at 4. She is a learning center,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
all
how,
a daycare,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's learning.
Yeah.
And my guess is from all the work that you said you've already put into it, there's probably not a lot of other people out there doing what you're doing, so, is my guess.
have you had any updates on the process or if it,
Yeah, I've been working on it every day.
okay,
Yeah.
or just from like the state side more so?
Oh, that will come,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
too worried about that, but.
Nicole, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, like when Sam was mentioning putting something together, a piece for the school to possibly agree on, or at least a starting point for Bright Beginnings. Nicole, like maybe you can remind, I don't think Craig was at that meeting, but like remind what you asked from the school, like the bus, the meals, like the 2 classroom spaces. It would be nice to at least get an idea of how much the school would charge for that, right?
Yeah.
So is that a piece that you could build out for potential?
Public information, but again, that's a negotiations
Yeah,
I mean,
I was just more or less like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna put something together for VPK and school readiness, you had asked, should I proceed with Bright Beginnings?
Yeah, and that's, so I will say that's typically how, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's typically how the process has worked so far, is that if we have somebody come to us with Ruby's Pantry even, we don't charge them anything, but they came to us and said, okay, we want to host an event, a regular event, how do we go about that? We draw up a contract, then it gets given to you for review, and then you say yes or no. So the kind of legwork on what is in the contract happens at our level, and then it gets put in front of you for approval. So,
The county, we charge county $500 for the 4-H office. And then they have,
A month, or, I'm sorry, 500 for a month? What were, do you mind grabbing the mic? Are you okay if I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I also apologize, I forgot you were not at that meeting, because you were not at the last board meeting, so some of this has been talked about,
I think I was
unfortunately,
there.
so. Were you there?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I could have sworn he said he wasn't there.
he wasn't here when we brought the daycares in, that's what he was referring to.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The challenge was, well, we did it for all these other daycares. There's noise out there.
You had a question?
Yeah, I did. I gotta remember what it was again. I think at that meeting before, when you were you presented, you were waiting on certain things to hear from the board. What were those things again?
I think I was just wondering if I could rent a space and what that would cost. That was my main question, I guess. That's what I'm looking for, so I can kind of move forward with the rest of everything else. I kind of put it out there on social media to get a number of how many kids are interested. So I have a rough number there, but kind of need to know more for sure numbers, because then you know what to charge. Because I intend on having 4 staff members plus myself. So I have to make it work for everybody and not overcharge.
And so you're looking for a few, clearly some answers. As far as time frame, how soon are you needing those answers? Because, you're already putting out there for interest, right?
Right.
And so,
ideally, the sooner the better, just for many, many reasons. There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of ahead of time.
and who works, will you be presenting a contract, a proposed contract then
No,
to
we
the
would.
school, or who does?
We would do the contract.
We would do, okay.
And so what you're asking, Sam, is to be able to, okay, here, we've written up this contract to give it to us for review.
Yeah, and if you
Not
said,
for-
well, if you
not
said
for
you
a
liked it,
vote.
you could vote on it.
Yeah.
If you would like more time, we can do that too.
Changes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm okay with
Starting,
working on that.
starting the
Yes.
process.
Okay, great.
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
I mean, for us and for.
And that will
Right.
give us something to look at to give input on.
And for the sake of time, and I think I can do this, I could send you a draft of that contract, and then you could give me individual feedback on it. So,
And as far as, so you would be looking for, sorry, was it 1 or 2 classrooms? Or is it, do you?
I originally
you
was
don't know
looking
yet?
at either or
Yep.
scenario, but I think when I met with my financial person through the First Children's Finance over Zoom today, actually, she came up with different scenarios of what would work, what wouldn't work. Looking like the best scenario was 2 classrooms, not necessarily full at 20, but 18 students per class was working with the numbers that we had to pay staff and charge payrolls.
And then I think that's the concern for the pre-K that we're looking at. Unless that's outside of that 4-year-old.
I think it is outside. She's including
Yeah.
3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
Yeah, and I mean, it's nothing we can control.
No.
But I just think it's just important that we understand its potential impact on the pre-K program, but, and as far as, I mean, I think I'm sure I know the answer to this, so it makes me silly I'm asking it, but as far as like behavioral issues and stuff, is there any resources that you're looking for assistance from the schools with these kids, social worker, or is this all, I mean, this is,
Yeah, I guess we wouldn't be looking for any of that type of help.
No, and I would say that's another, as a private entity, we would,
It's a hard line.
yeah, that's a hard line. Now, there are services in the building, like Northland Counseling, if any of those kids had, you know, and working with Lexi and her team, I mean, there's some of those pieces that we'd have to set some firm,
It would be basically more of just a convenience to alternatives.
Yes.
Instead of them having to go to a center on Main Street,
right,
they would
right.
be here.
currently with our daycares or, you know, if a child becomes ill or they, that are in one of the daycares, do they go down to our nurse, our school nurse?
No.
It is like, it's like they're just
The
in a
parent
separate building,
drives.
really.
I would think if some drastic emergency happened, yeah, the nurse could run down there and stop.
But
the
they
bleeding or
all
something,
have
but-
training as
Yeah.
well. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
certified in that too when they're providers, but
And all of the providers are on our emergency messenger system. So let's say we cancel school and the building is closed.
they all.
Providers get notified and then are responsible for letting their people know.
And on those closed days when there's no custodial
Correct.
here, they are closed as
Yes.
well.
Yep. So they follow our kind of,
Closures.
Closure
and late
days.
opens.
Yes.
Typically, yeah.
Late starts and early releases, though, we give them a little more latitude.
Yeah.
Allow parents to get from work to pick the kids up and stuff like that.
So
They-
as far as the classrooms, I mean, supplies aren't provided as far as paper and stuff?
no.
How about the desks, chairs, and everything else?
They buy
So they
everything in their
provide
room.
just it's an empty room?
I mean, similarly, when you ask about the nurse, they don't get run, attendance does not get run through the office. So like if a parent needs to pick up a student, one of those daycare or one of those kids early, they go directly to Nicole or the provider. So all of those rooms have specific access points around
they're
the
locked in
doors.
the day,
And they're locked during the day, so they gotta
Yeah.
coordinate with their provider to get them out of the
So
building.
like if I had to go get my child during the day, I would, for example, because I have a child in the daycare in the school, so I can give like a real life example. It's the door by Chad Larson's room.
Yep, high school.
So it's locked during the day, so the provider would
Escort
essentially
child
like
out.
have to, yes,
Okay,
yeah,
so adults aren't coming in and not getting checked into the school?
no.
Well, they're not being checked in.
Same as if you
They're
arrive
being
late.
Escorted by the provider.
Right,
If they're not entering the school, they don't need to be checked in the school.
Well,
That's
I mean,
my
they're
point.
entering the school building, but it's, I mean, obviously that opening is still a school building, but they're being escorted by the provider, is that correct?
yeah,
Like, you're not going around to the front office and
No.
checking in.
no, going to
So,
that door,
but you're
which is
still,
right.
you're entering the confines of the school building, right?
That's not what she was suggesting.
Well, it's
She was suggesting the provider was escorting the child outside. That's my understanding.
oh, is that you escort the child out? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, you go to the door, it's right, just
Okay,
across
my
from
bad.
his room,
Yeah, I heard that.
yeah.
We eventually got on the
Yep,
same page.
yep.
Takes us a
We got
while.
So I mean, as far as our next regular scheduled board meeting, that point in time, we would be presented with this contract? Would that be what would be?
Yeah, I think my process would be, especially given it sounds like you've got questions about that process and the contract itself, I'm inclined to send a draft before the meeting that you could offer me feedback on, and ask questions about, so that you,
That's definitely the easiest way if you.
Right.
A lot of my questions, and again, I think we need more daycare facilities. There's nothing against the.
No.
A lot of my questions are to ensure that, having these other private programs aren't impacting us financially.
Right.
In some roundabout way where, in a negative way.
yeah.
So we're not making any money off of them. But at the
Well,
same point,
yeah.
we've had the community, social services, and local organizations help defray some of the costs. We had an issue with the fire marshal
yeah.
qualifications that
County
didn't
put
cost the district a dime, but the community chipped in.
Yep.
So I think we can keep that in mind, that we're all trying to provide more opportunities for families.
Yeah. My questions are not
No,
attached
these
to
are all
what's
good
going on.
questions, yeah.
I'm just trying to.
No,
I
but,
haven't been here very long, so
Right.
we got daycares here. I wasn't part of the process. I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
I
and
want to familiarize myself.
I apologize if that sounded, if that came across from me as intense. I think processing time for everybody is important, and sometimes these meetings can be this like, hurry up and make a decision, on my part especially. So I think the draft can be a good opportunity for people to sit with it. I've been a little intentional in this whole pre-K process in general, because I know that it can be a little fraught. So we're doing several meetings so that we can sit and chew on it.
The only other question I had regarding the program is, would it be being offered from just the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year? These aren't offered during the summer months?
Correct.
With the school as a day off of school for Christmas vacation or whatever it might be, those days you're closed, I would presume? Is that how it
I would
works?
think we would try to follow the school schedule.
Okay,
Daycares do the same.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
Although there are days like President's Day, Martin Luther King Day, where there are no students in the building,
It's an insert.
but it's an
day.
in-service. Yeah, so
And some of them do
Tends to
go
get-
through the summer.
some do not.
Yeah.
Some of the daycares
They do?
run through the
Okay.
summer. You're
Yeah,
right.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it basically hinges on whether there's a custodian in the building.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's what keeps it open for them.
In the contracts for the childcare, the daycares that are here, are they just yearly base, or we have
I
to sign
think the
longer?
last
or
one we did 2 years out.
2 years?
It used to be 1 year, I think we did a 2-year.
Do you know how long you'd be interested in, what the length of the contract you'd be looking for? Would it be a year or 2, or what would you be requesting? Or
The daycares do theirs.
Well, I think given this is kind of a new situation, my inclination would be let's do a year and then see how it goes.
Some of the daycares have been here for years now, so I mean,
Right.
things are
Yes.
fairly consistent with them.
When they first started, we did year contracts,
Yeah.
just for the exact same reason. It's like, well, let's see how this works out.
Yep.
is that something you'd be agreeable to, a year contract? That's not a deal breaker, because you want it for 5 or 2 or whatever it might be?
I don't think it's a deal breaker, no.
Okay.
So when Sam sends out the information, it'll be line CC to every board member statement. Make sure your questions go directly,
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yep.
include me into it.
Okay, got it. Okay, so two things. I'm gonna we're gonna work on a contract. We'll give you a draft to review. I'm gonna work on a proposal with the 160 a week medium-high pay scale. And I will get some details from you, because is that policy for the pre-K? We'll talk about that. I don't know how you want me to present that. For the March 24th board meeting. Anything else in the meantime? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and energy. Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't.
I thought you had another question going.
No, not right now.
And if questions do come up, either from you or from your constituents, please feel free to reach out.
Did you guys have any questions or comments further in the back?
I was just here for the information, because I know I'm gonna get asked.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.